would you rather just drink some whiskey and watch the world end?
Yep.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Metacast podcast. That is the podcast that explores itself, explores ourselves, and explores the self in general. My name is Ty. I'm going to be one of your co-hosts.
And I'm the only reason you should come back to Earth. Distance.
And tonight is the Metacast movie show about The Midnight Sky. The Midnight Sky is a 2020 science fiction drama. It's with a screenplay by Mark L. Smith. It's based on Good Morning Midnight by Lily Brooks Dalton, and it's directed by George Clooney.
It stars George Clooney, Felicity Jones, David Oyelowo, and Kaylin Springle.
The budget for this movie was about $100 million, with a limited run box office take of about 62,557.
The tomato meter rating was 51%, with an audience score of 26%.
The Midnight Sky follows Augustine, who is a scientist working in the Arctic Circle, and when a global catastrophe threatens all life on the planet, his facility is evacuated, but he chooses to stay behind in an attempt to warn a spaceship returning from a mission near Jupiter. Okay, so this movie is difficult for me to give a should you watch verdict to, because I really enjoyed this movie. I liked it a lot. However, the way that I view my should you watch verdict is more, it's not did I like it, it's, again, should you watch it? The general person that I think is viewing this YouTube video. So by looking at the audience score on the Rotten Tomatoes and everything, I do recognize that a lot of people don't like this movie. The most valid criticisms that I've seen for it are that it is incredibly slow moving and that a lot of the action scenes just kind of feels like a ripoff of Gravity. Which I think both of those are valid criticisms. However, like I said, I enjoyed this movie. And whenever I'm going to give it a verdict of should you watch it, I would say that the type of person that I think would view my YouTube content, the type of person that I would usually talk to movies about, the type of person that I would align with normally, I think would enjoy this type of movie. So I would give this a yes. However, I do want to condition that with I definitely understand that there are a lot of people that do not like this movie, and I feel that they are valid criticisms. How about you? How do you feel?
I didn't see Gravity, so if any of the action scenes were a ripoff from that, I kind of wouldn't know. But I don't think that action's really the main point of the film. And I'm not what you would call like a movie snob, but I'm not like a movie cave dweller either. So it's like I think that this is a movie that I'm actually surprised, because I don't usually look at any of the stuff, the information for the film, until right when I basically fucking read the shit, unless there are difficult names to say like today. But I am surprised by how much people dislike this movie. But for this one, I think I'm going to give it a yes for should you watch, mainly because I think that anybody that likes movies should make their own decision on this one. I think this is one that I think you should watch it and see what you think. Like compare what you think of this film to what other people think of it. And if you hate it, okay. If you don't, then great. But yeah, it is slow. Just make sure you know that going in.
I would say though, there is definitely stuff you can get out of this movie. It's hard to talk about without old spoiler Terry popping up though. So I'm ready to get into some more about this actual movie. But yeah, so this is a movie you could easily spoil. There is like the big, twist type, and that is what I wanted to say about this movie. Now that I feel that we are in spoiler territory and I can talk freely, the way I wanted to review this movie was basically saying that I loved where it got to at the end, what it made me think, what it made me feel, but I can understand if many people don't feel that it's worth the journey to get there, because it is a longer and slower journey to get there. However, I enjoy movies like that. I do realize though that, like, I mean, especially, yeah, like I was surprised too. I agree with you on that. But looking at the, you know, the Rotten Tomatoes score, I can recognize that I think maybe the majority of the American movie watching audience does not have the type of patience that I do when it comes to movies, I guess. Because something that, you know, this movie, I did not feel like it was, I mean, while watching it, I definitely felt slow, but it felt on pace with most drama movies. It didn't feel exceedingly slow. But then reading reviews of it, people were just like, oh my God, it was so slow. The 2 years felt like, or the 2 hours felt like 2 years, but like all sorts of stuff like that. So I do think that maybe, you know, I'm just kind of realizing that I might not be the normal audience, and that a lot of times my criticisms don't fall in line with the vast majority of people out there.
I did not feel like this movie was generally super slow. It wasn't like a super fast movie, but I went into this film expecting a drama.
Yeah.
I saw a bearded, very depressed looking George Clooney and a bunch of fucking snow. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be a drama. That's what I'm gonna watch. That's what I'll be looking at when I watch this movie. So
that was my expectation too. Yeah.
Since I came into it expecting that, while yes, it was kind of slow paced, it wasn't like excruciatingly slow, like to the point where like I couldn't stand like the amount of time that had to pass for things to happen. I mean, I felt like it moved rather quickly, considering it's more of a dramatic movie. But I think the story, okay, this is like maybe a weird thing to say, but this movie is kind of like Scotch.
Go on.
When I hear people say that they don't like Scotch, I tell them that there's a lot more going on in the glass than they are picking up or than they're realizing. And that it's kind of like that with this movie, is that, and actually, you know what? Aside from my favorite line, I have no notes on this movie at all.
Oh, really? That's good.
Because I just like the fucking movie so much. I was like, you know what? I'm not taking notes on this one. I was like, I'm just going to watch it. I only took notes on my second viewing, which it did give me some notes, but yeah, the first time I was just watching and enjoying. And yeah, just like you, I definitely enjoyed this and did not at all look at the scores or anything until preparing the notes for this, and was actually blown away by the audience score. That was like, wow, I was impressed by this movie. But I think similar to Scotch, it may be all about expectations. You and I both went into this expecting a slower paced drama, and we kind of got what we were expecting. If you pick up a glass of Scotch expecting some sweet tea, you're probably not going to have the experience that you're looking for. So I wonder, was there people that went into this for, and we did see the trailer in the, I had it rolling in the first few minutes of the episode, but I didn't see anything in the trailer that would lead me to go into this movie expecting something very different. I do feel that a lot of times that is where people's bad reviews come from, is they may go into the movie expecting something that it didn't deliver, and then hold that movie accountable for not fulfilling their expectations when maybe the movie was never supposed to. But with this one, I'm not exactly sure what people's main problem was, other than, I mean, again, people saying it's slow, but I agree with you that I don't think that it was too slow in any regard. Yeah. I do think one thing that was interesting and felt kind of cheesy to me was the slow pacing was broken up by those action scenes of just like, oh, now we've got a high tension situation to deal with, and then it's, usually like 4 to 5 minutes of that, and then it tapers off. And there was kind of like a sine wave of energy to the movie, where it's like every 15, 20 minutes, there was some sort of tension event, which I do think was kind of,
almost for this type of movie not needed. I would almost like have preferred it to just be more drama centered and not really need those moments on the ship of like, oh well, now they're going through a meteor field and like how do they deal with, because it all ended up being inconsequential in the end. You know, it was like all it was a plot device to make that crew kind of threatened for a little bit, but in the big scheme of the story, at least in my opinion, it was actually just kind of unnecessary, and like it felt like it was only there for the movie audience that wants the movie to be a little more action packed, basically.
Yeah, it did seem like a way to kind of break things up a bit, because I mean there was a little bit of like, okay, there's a lot going on. There's a story of the people on the craft. There's the little intricacies and complexities of some of the characters. One of the characters, I think he's the actual pilot guy. I do not. Is it Mitchell? Was that his name?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
That character was completely flat. There was like nothing there except like at the end where he's like, my family though. And like, I was like, what? And I did like
Kyle Chandler in that role though. I've liked him in a lot of stuff, and I thought he gave a good performance, but I do think I completely agree that like he really didn't have a lot on the page to work with. His character was one dimensional. Like,
and Sanchez becomes a little more interesting as the story goes on. Maya is one of those characters where, so humans are mostly pretty shallow. We're rather superficial creatures. We make a lot of sort of judgments based on what we can see. And the Tiffany Boone that played Maya was a good cast for that part, because she's got sort of a camera presence that just makes you think, man, I kind of like her. Yeah, she's got like a sort of I don't know what to call it.
Bangable?
Her smile's
kind of a bangable vibe.
Her smile is very charming. And her character has kind of a sort of a positive, kind of like sort of uplifting, fun attitude, and it kind of makes you like the character without actually developing her that much.
I thought like even just like small little bits of that scene where she was like getting sick because of the zero gravity, and then Mitchell asks if she needs help, and she says just hands him the bag, and like just little stuff like that of like the quirks of a character that make you like kind of like him. Like I agree.
It's funny because if you notice on every episode, I'm always talking about like, oh, casting, bro, casting. Have you watched the episode?
I just want to say, speaking of casting, I thought I had a note here specifically that I thought the casting of young Augustine was great.
Oh yeah,
the Ethan Peck, I think was his name. But I thought it sounded like they dubbed his voice with a younger. Like, okay, I thought that was actually Clooney's voice, but the casting though I thought was phenomenal. Yeah.
They 100% dubbed his voice, but he did play the part really, really well. And have you seen the episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Christoph Waltz?
Well, I've seen all of them. I don't remember his name though. Who is that?
He's the one that plays the whimsically evil SS guy in Inglourious Basterds.
Oh yeah, I love that dude. Yeah.
Christoph.
It feels weird saying, but he's a great actor. I should say it that way.
Yeah. I think he's Austrian, if I'm not mistaken. But he in the
Australian.
He in the episode. Jerry said something about like, actors being such great artists or whatever. And Christoph was just like, no, I just kind of do what they tell me to do. And if I'm cast well for the role, then I'll do a good job. Bad casting equals bad acting, not right for the role. It's like actors just do their job is kind of like his sort of idea, which is very like what you'd expect for his personality off camera.
That's also funny because that reminds me of Augustine's line in the movie where he, at the end when he's talking to Sully and just says, I just point, when he's talking about how he found the plan and everything. That's kind of cool. I do find that like people that are masters of their craft tend to break it down to its simplest because they turn that's really what they view it as when they, it's not a big deal to them. Like all they do is just this, but they tend to be very good at it.
I mean, no matter how great an actor is, like John Malkovich could never play Bruce Wayne. It just wouldn't work.
I would love to see that adaptation. Oh my God. I would love to see like Eddie Murphy style John Malkovich playing every role in a Batman movie. I think that would be phenomenal.
Great. Like, do you have any idea how long it took for me to find this building to dangle you off of, sir? Do I look like the police to you? Like
That's not a bad
that wasn't
Malkovich.
bad
I like
impression.
that.
I've actually never done a Malkovich impression, but that wasn't terrible. I just saw him in something recently. He played a tiny role in another movie I watched. I can't remember what it was. He was great in it though. The guy's great in fucking everything he does.
Yeah, I was about to say I
well.
can't picture a bad. Well, and then there's also the selection too of, I think there's a lot of, you know, this may fall to the actor or to their agent or manager. I don't know who says, but like there's a lot of actors that I think say yes to roles they just shouldn't. And then there's the actors that are more picky, and you could tell that they only do the roles that they know are good, they're going to be a good fit for. But
Tom Cruise had some really stupid ones early in his career, but since like maybe, I don't know, 1993, or was it 91 when Top Gun came out? Or was that in the 80s?
Ooh, I was going to guess 94, but now I feel like I'm way off.
Okay, no, not the new one.
My mouse is dying. I'm trying to like plug it in before it actually dies.
Oh, 86.
Wow, that movie is older than I am. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's older than we thought. We're also older than they think. But you know, I feel like there's, the reason why I compare this to Scotch is because I think there's a lot of complexity to the story. You've got this sort of weird storyline between the little girl and Augustine, and then you've got like the sort of Earth is fucking ending. You got the people on the spacecraft, which you've got
quickly. I do want to say I love how they leave the Earth is ending story just kind of completely out of it. They never go into details of what happens. Like even when Augustine is trying to tell Sully what was going on, his voice kind of breaks up, and they just kind of like, as a viewer, you just kind of really don't know what happened, other than like it sounded like it was somewhat humanity's fault. There was some sort of accident or something, and then I thought that was kind of interesting the way they did that though.
I like that they did it too, because have you seen the miniseries on Netflix? I think what Love, Death, and Robots.
Yeah.
The one where there's the robots like on the post-apocalyptic Earth, and the one robot, she's like sitting there looking off into the distance, like then they thought they could control the world, and they did what they wanted to with it, and their recklessness led to destroying the planet. And someone's like, really? She's like, nah, they just genetically engineered their cats to have opposable thumbs.
That's like, actually one of my favorite episodes of that. Yeah,
I love it. But like the irony of that. Oh, sorry. If you haven't seen it, I just spoiled it.
Oh yeah, we just spoiled that one too. Yeah.
Fuck.
God damn it, Terry.
Terry times two. Fucking Terry.
That one was genius though. How it's like when the cats even start talking, that it's like once they realized they could open their own cans of tuna, they didn't need humans anymore. It's like, well, that is. Yeah. I looked at Boots watching that episode and was like, yeah, you're one opposable thumb away from my demise.
I think my cat's too dumb to kill anything other than like maybe I feel like if I put a mouse in my apartment, he would know what to do with it. But there's always this like sort of doom and gloom kind of thing, like people in post-apocalyptic films like making the narrative of what happened and all the ways that humanity fucked up. And I like the fact that they almost, in this film, they don't distract you with that, because it would be a distraction. Yeah. It's really not relevant. But there is something that I kind of like when you were talking about like this sort of action, like catastrophe type scenes. I like the fact that the way that the spacecraft they're in looks, it has this kind of fragile look to it. The weird like 3D printed. Yeah. Look. Yeah. And like the little panels in it and stuff like have this sort of glass look to them. Yeah. So I think that gives you a bigger sense of worry of just how vulnerable they are in space. Like, the fucking Ridley Scott spaceships are like, 20 inches of like plate steel. Yeah. So if something hits those, you're like, they'll be fine. What's really scary is that alien inside. Yeah. It looks like the Borg cube flying through space. Like that thing is durable. But the ones in this, I do think that may be the point of those tension scenes, like I was kind of critiquing though, is once you realize that ship is kind of the last bastion of humanity, it's more important for them to survive. Like it's really, I mean, like Sully, what is the dude's name? Adole?
I'm so bad at pronouncing that. I know that she called him Ade, right? Isn't that kind of like the short version of it?
I think so.
But it's like, yeah, like them and their child surviving is pretty paramount in this movie, which also I do think brings to mind. Personally, I think Mitchell and was it Martinez are like scumbags. I don't know if like, okay, so everyone just kind of says, I understand when they're making the decision to like go back to Earth to kind of die. And it's like, okay, I understand making that decision, but also like, I feel like the percentage loss to humanity at that point is not worth that. If you feel like you need to die because of something that happened, you know, like a promise you made to your now dead family or something, like that to me is like, okay, but I think in the greater good, you kind of put that feeling aside to like help humanity rebuild when there's so few people left. I don't know. That to me, it felt like it was kind of a strange decision, and I didn't understand why so many people were just okay with it in the movie, I guess. But
yeah, I think Mitchell, I think he had some hope that he'd actually be able to find his family and more or less die with them, but it is kind of weird. And, you know, I can't imagine being stuck on a fucking spaceship and then on a planet with my partner and only them for the rest of my life. And then my kid, like, I just can't imagine, like, ugh.
yeah, because
Talk
they
about,
said
like, the worst fucking road trip ever.
because like K-23 was supposed to be a colony, but it sounded like the colony ship that was supposed to be on its way there had some issues. So it's like, yeah, what was it? Literally just Sully, him, and the kid at the end, or was there any life left on any human life left on K-23? They didn't really go into that, but I don't know. Well, okay, I want to start into some of my like early notes here, getting through. First of all, I don't understand, why did it have to be a moon of Jupiter that does not exist? Why not just use one of the real moons in the solar system that we want to search for life? Like that to me threw me off. You know, it's like from the beginning it was like, okay, like it, but I guess you know, the thing that I try to preach, okay, maybe this isn't in our universe, so it's a universe where there's this other moon and then things are different, like, but what I would say is like normally movies like this type of drama, they usually want emotional grounding by tying it to our reality. So just having that be like Titan or one of the moons of Jupiter, like it just would have made more sense to me. Like Europa, like I didn't understand why that had to be a brand new moon they just made up for this movie.
Well, I think that Europa isn't that the one that's mostly frozen, and we think that there might be actual liquid water underneath.
Yes. Yep.
So I think for me, I think the reason why they used one that was previously unknown that they suddenly discovered somehow was because I think that it would have created some like inaccuracies in what was kind of happening.
Yeah. True. Well, and they also, as part of the plot, they needed it to be one that Augustine discovered. So they wanted it, but then it's like, okay, why does it need to be in our solar system? You can just have it be humanity has faster than light travel, and it's you know, there's an extrasolar planet that they're going to. You know, it's like it just seemed like
I hate faster than light travel.
Yeah, it does cause problems. So yeah, maybe this is the most eloquent way to do it, but like it just immediately threw me off as a science nerd. You know, it's like I immediately had to pause the movie and like start Googling, like, hold on, does K-23 exist? I've never heard of that moon. And then I'm like, I spent 15 minutes of this movie, you know, reading stuff about Jupiter's moon system, because it's like but that's just me, I guess. I guarantee most people didn't do that. But so yeah, let's move past that point. I another point I thought was stupid. Why did he have to sit down at the computer and say list active missions to know that Aether was out there? It seemed like, yeah, like my second watch of this movie, it seemed like the entire point was how important it was to him to talk to Sully, basically, and that it seemed like he knew the entire time on my second watch. So I'm confused as to why it seemed like he wasn't aware of that mission already being out. You know what I mean? It seemed like kind of happenstance that one day he was just like, hold on, list active missions, and then saw it there, and like that to me just seemed like a strange plot device, I guess.
It was I just kind of thought of it as like a way to sort of showcase the current technology of the time, that there's this computer you can just talk to. And I think that I think they wanted to give you a sense of all the red on the screen. like all the doom and gloom, like all the other stuff that was shut down. And I think that they were just using it as a way to give some kind of ooh to like the audience, like that one, like there is the hope, you know. So it is a little ridiculous that he didn't know, but I think it was something to try to get some kind of response from the audience, so you can understand like how much is not happening, how many operations and missions have just completely shut down, because humanity is about to just fizzle and die. But yeah, I mean, I would think that he would know, since they were going to the planet he discovered. And that he was hoping it was essentially his life's work, and
that it's his daughter on the mission. Like, yeah, it seems like there's a lot of that he would have been very aware that is, you know, that mission was going on and was still out there.
But he may have also just been trying to check the status in case something fucked up happened that he didn't know about between, you know, before everybody left and after everybody left.
Well, yeah, but it's okay. So, but if you were, that was more my point though, was that it seemed like he should have been just interested in that specific mission. Rather, you know, it should have been like, check status of mission either, rather than, you know, like list active, you know what I mean? Like if you're looking for something specific, you're not going to query the database for all active missions. You're going to, like, you know, search for that one specific one you're looking for. So it seemed like the way that scene was supposed to read was almost like he stumbled across that and didn't know that it was going on before, which then felt weird because it seemed like he should have been well aware of it. But like,
computer, make the audience kind of sad.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, that's more or less like what the scene was. But yeah, it would make more sense that he just kind of knew it.
But it could also, I mean, it could also be for the purpose of the viewer. The same reason why, like, in the beginning, they threw in the scene of the woman yelling about her daughter missing, because that way when Iris just shows up later, it's plausible to you. You're like, oh, that was the girl that got left behind. Like, it makes sense to you as the viewer. But,
you know, on the subject of the moon thing, I think as someone who, you often comment about older movies aging well, if we later discover that Europa can't support life, because it's one of the ones that we are looking at, maybe, well, then that makes this film age terribly later. If
that's a good
find
point.
Out. That was kind of one of the thoughts that I had about it. Like, why did they make up a moon? Plus, like, making it up means that the creators have liberty.
Yeah,
they can make that planet what they wanted to. They don't have to worry about accuracies.
Yes,
of, you know, and they can make the atmosphere breathable.
Exactly, that saves a lot in budget. You get to film in, you know, in a highly contrasted forest and make that look like a planet.
Yeah, and it puts the fiction in the science fiction part.
Dude, I love the whole idea with the I'm the wrong person thing when he first finds Iris there, and like, because I feel like that's a, when we talk about this movie having a lot going on, like that's one of the, I don't know if it's necessarily like a theme that stood out to me, but like I feel like everyone has had that feeling where you're the only one that can do something all of a sudden, but you shouldn't be, right? Like you're the wrong person, but like it's down to you anyways. And like I think that's kind of a cool way that they did that, at least, is showing that it's like sometimes you just do what has to be done even though you're not the right one for the job.
And kind of later on, you realize that it's sort of a projection of his past too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That he was the wrong person. You know, like I'm not the right person to, well, be your dad. And it's almost like somehow he knew that. And she, was it Jean? Was that her name? She knew that too.
The mom. Yeah. Jean Salt. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think it's clever that they call Iris Sullivan Sully.
Yeah.
That's a good way to hide. Well, I mean, you don't really have a choice. I mean, they had to do that to hide who she was till the end of the film.
Exactly. Yeah. I do think that there was a way that Augustine looked at Iris when you remember when she was sitting there drawing the flower and he asks, he's like, is your name Iris? And she like kind of looks up at him. He says, okay. He kind of has this look of realization on his face that I think at that moment he realized that he was seeing her and that it wasn't because like that was after he had the panic moment where he was trying to contact other people and said like a child had been left behind. So I do think that like initially to him, he thought that there was another person there, but I think that it very quickly realized that he was seeing someone else, and then as the audience we didn't realize until much later. Which that is one question I wanted to ask you. This, very often I guess where movies are going, I see twists coming from a mile away. I did not at all see that Iris was Sully until the movie literally slapped me with it. Did you see where it was going?
I had a feeling that his daughter was on the ship.
Okay.
I had it very early on, and there was a couple scenes where I was like, "Oh, here it comes! Okay, not yet." And then at the end of the movie, she says, "I'm Iris," and he's like, "I know," and I'm like, "Ah, I fucking knew it."
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny because I rarely figure out or even try to figure out where movies are going. Yet somehow for this one, I just had this feeling that she was going to be on there. And I also thought maybe she was going to die too.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really sure exactly. You know, the scene where I guess, I think they're like storage units or something that he happens to see in the middle of the nothingness that the Iris hallucination points at, and he stays in.
Yes.
Do you? Because I think that because there is sort of a bit of a foreshadow there, where it kind of makes you scratch your head as I'm actually scratching my head. That he tells her, ask me anything.
Yeah, he says, ask me a question.
And then then she says, like, did you love her? And then all of a sudden he wakes up like drowning.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, it seemed like that whole thing was kind of a dream. And that because he immediately like wakes up like in the frozen water, like about to, sink. And it is, it kind of makes me wonder if Augustine's doing what he's doing for the good of humanity, or if he's doing it for his daughter. Because if he's doing it for his daughter, then, if you think Mitchell and Sanchez are shitty,
mm-hmm.
well, it seems that, maybe Augustine doesn't have the greater good in mind. Maybe it's just the fact that he knows his daughter's on the ship, or both.
Well, I think like we talked about earlier, though, I think if it really is just them left, there is no greater good at that point. Like if it is literally two people and one child, I don't think there is enough genetic diversity to recreate the human race at that point. So operating under the assumption that like literally the colony is just them and they're going to just die, then it doesn't actually matter. I do think that yes, it was just simply to talk to his daughter. But I feel like if I would have guessed it, I feel like you probably had a better watching experience than I did, because while watching the movie, all of it felt pointless up until the end, because there were no stakes to me. It was like, okay, well, humanity's over regardless. Like, what does it matter? It's like, it felt like there was this, until I understood that it was so he could talk to his daughter one time and kind of have that connection and have that realization of like what he missed in his life. Until then, it made absolutely no sense what he was fighting so hard for to warn them. It was like, okay, big deal. Like, this one ship of one family either dies or makes it back. It's like it did not seem to me like that was going to be like the make or break of the human race, I guess.
I was under the impression that it was like his life's work was sort of what he was chasing after, that he recognized that he'd given up most of his life. Because the thing about Augustine is he doesn't develop in the present, he develops in the past.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably part of the reason why you enjoyed Ethan Peck, because he sort of creates the character for you.
Yeah. And
then, George Clooney is sort of just Augustine all dried up and, old and more or less about to die. That for me, like, it was almost like a character study, kind of, is what I thought of the film as being. Because you see Sanchez has some weird attachment to Maya, and you don't quite understand what that is. He acts that scene very well when she's sort of in the sort of that little simulator thing that they're in.
Their holodeck kind of.
Yeah. And he has that sort of very convincing kind of warm smile thing that happens.
Yeah.
When she introduces him to the virtual family members and friend, it
and
actually
Einstein.
seems
Don't forget
like
Einstein, the smartest cat in the world.
Who? Oh, the cat.
Yeah, the cat named Einstein. Yeah, I thought that was cute.
That it's almost like she's actually introducing someone significant to them.
Yeah.
And then you see Mitchell kind of this sort of strange, almost somewhat detached guy that suggests some weird name for for Sully's daughter, whilst everybody else is suggesting names.
I did think that was why was everyone trying to name the baby so much? Like,
everybody does that?
Is that really a thing? Okay, that was really weird to me, but
yeah, like both of my sisters have 2 kids each, and they've had like different remarks about it. You know, one of them was, people won't stop fucking telling me what to name my kid. And the other thing is no matter what you say, it's like everybody seems to know somebody that they didn't like with the name that you want your kid to have.
Oh, I have heard that. Yeah.
Like, ooh, I knew Colin. He was an asshole. Like, well, fuck. Now I'm gonna think that my kid's gonna be an asshole if I name him this. So
the kid's probably gonna be an asshole no matter what. But
probably,
just law of deduction. Your kid's probably gonna be an asshole. Just go ahead and name him Chad or Karen.
Because there you go. It's funny because if I recall, I think that I knew 2 different people that I was not particularly fond of that had the names of both of one of my sister's sons. So she named both of them after people I wasn't fans of.
And that's why you hate them so much. That makes sense. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Kids, by the way, if you're watching, Uncle Distance hates you.
He talks about you guys constantly, but in negative ways.
If you're on a spaceship head to Earth and it was going to end, I would just let you come back. Well, and you know that I didn't know what their names were until they had already gotten squeezed out. So, but even then, I would have kept it to myself. I wouldn't have been like, "Ooh, I knew somebody with that name that I didn't like." Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a really common name. People like to suggest names. It's like a really weird thing. I'm not really sure why, but it seems to be fairly common. Like one of the guys at work will talk about how his wife's having a kid, she's pregnant, or a lady at work will be expecting a kid, and you just randomly hear people fucking say like, "Have you thought of this name? How about this one?" And I don't know why, but yeah, people do it. It's a thing. 100%.
Okay.
But for me, like I just thought of the film as a character study, and for some of the weirder shit that we've watched, this made a hell of a lot more sense to me than a few of the other films that we've done on here. But you know, I guess the plot didn't really matter that much to me. And actually when we were texting about this and you said that you weren't sure how you felt about the movie, and I said, "Oh, it's good so far." The scene that I got to where I was like, "Oh, yep, shit just got fucked up."
Yeah, I was wondering what that was.
It's when Maya gets bludgeoned.
Okay, I was wondering. That was a rough watch for me. I am normally not bothered by blood in movies, but for some reason the like 0G blood just floating everywhere was like made me a little queasy. Like that was a tough scene.
And I don't know much about physics in space with liquid, but I can tell you that all seemed so counterintuitive to me, living like with gravity very, very, you know, near and dear to my heart, that it seemed pretty realistic to me, because the blood did not do at all what I thought it was supposed to. And the drama of all of it, that she sees a little droplet, and for a second, the audience, like I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yep.
And then it's like, oh shit. Like, and then she knows what's going on. And then they notice a wound. And then when they take the helmet off and the shit just pours out, then you realize the severity of the situation. And that's what I was talking about before.
Well, like, that's the cool thing too, is like all of the astronauts know how severe it is before that, because you know that it's like, I mean, if that's a puncture wound, that was a very fast moving small projectile that she basically got shot. And so you know that it's like, that is a bad situation. So the astronauts knew, but then yeah, like you said, as a viewer though, when you take off the helmet, you're like, holy shit, what happened?
I mean, I figured it was bad. There's a bunch of fucking rocks that came toward it, but it was at that moment that, you know, when they add this sort of blood aspect to it, you know, you got crimson flying all over the spaceship. It's like, fuck. Plus I really liked the character. Like, I think Maya's a very dateable character. So I was like,
it should have been Martinez. Yeah.
Like we
No, actually, it should have been Mitchell. I'm sorry.
It's like we were gonna get together and have babies, and they were gonna be gorgeous space babies, and then you killed her, George Clooney. Well, he only directed it.
Sure.
But
I'm kind of interested in reading the book. I wonder how different the story is from the movie.
I don't like books.
I feel you.
I'm just kidding. I pretty much only read nonfiction, but or self-help books, so I can feel like I'm getting better while still sucking.
Another thing I thought was kind of cool. How did you feel about the 3D printed rifle, the stock and everything? I thought that was actually a really cool looking gun. I thought that was neat.
I thought it was lame.
Really?
Well, because I was like, they're like, oh, let's make this look modern by having the exact same technology and attaching some nifty like skeletonized thing to it. Like it looked kind of cool, but you know, I thought it would make sense. I thought it would make sense because it's like if you were shipping all that stuff to a remote area, it would make sense to only ship the heavy parts and then print the stock and everything. Like you wouldn't want to like. There's no point in print and shipping a bunch of wood stocks and everything. But agreed. But you know, I maybe I should feel better about the fact that they didn't put a lot of thought into getting better at technology for killing people. Maybe it's good that the weapons are still pretty similar to what we have now. Maybe people didn't put as much thought into hurting each other. And they were just like, let's just take the same shit and 3D print it because, you know, Arctic.
Either that or we really just figured it out with the cartridge and it doesn't get much better than that. Am I? What if that's the pinnacle of killing people technology is just because, you know, they tried like the cartridge-less rounds and like that never really took off.
Bro, until we get to Star Wars, man, we haven't reached the pinnacle.
True. Yeah, that is true. I do want laser guns and lightsabers. So speaking of the rifle stock though, that was in my section about the plane crash. What do you think was going on in that scene? Was that just like some really rich person trying to escape everything, kind of like fly into a remote area, or?
Yeah, the way that the jet looked to me, because I was kind of wondering that too. I wondered, is that someone like leaving or escaping? But if I'm not mistaken, isn't NASA considered part of the military?
Maybe. I think their budget is, at least.
I would have expected it to be like what, a C-130 or whatever the military uses to move people around.
While NASA is focused on exploration, science, and technology, the Space Force is a military operation. But while the two have very different missions and overall goals, we share the same domain and we're operating the same environment. It does say that NASA is an independent agency of the U.S. federal government. So it is not actually a military branch or anything, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure there's someone in a military uniform that picked everybody up.
In the very beginning.
First, yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, like that had like a very like G5 kind of look to it. It had like a private jet sort of look to it. So it seemed to me that it was someone who was just trying to get away from all the craziness and
it had like the like art in it too. It looked like it was someone like trying to escape with their their like expensive belongings and shit. Big Dog in chat just brought up a good question. Do you think there was any symbolism of the blood and family, like the Augustine constantly going through the what was it, chemo or dialysis, or what was he actually going through?
Don't people with certain I thought people with certain types of cancer, maybe bone cancer.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it was.
I'm actually Googling.
But either way, though, it did like kind of make it a point to focus on, you know, showing the blood coming out and going slowly back in and everything. And it is kind of like, I mean, the whole theme of the movie that I got was the importance of that familial connection and what he really feels like he kind of missed out on in life. Huh? That's interesting. I didn't think of that at all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible there's some symbolism there. I mean, I like for a lot of the symbolism in films is like buried really, really deep. And sometimes like we can create symbolism for ourselves that may not have been intended by the creators, which I think is pretty cool about movies.
Yeah.
But as somebody that, I mean, I I have been working on the same short story for about 3 years now, just off and on. And I can tell you that the symbolism that I've put in that is really, it's buried really, really deep to the point like where nobody else I think would ever understand the symbolism that I'm
Mhm.
trying to create in it. So it's entirely possible that's what they were getting at. I didn't really think about that, but they do make it very clear that this is a transfusion. There's a device that's being used. It's almost part of the story,
Yeah.
really. I mean, they make it a big part of it.
That whole
And
like
I
intro
was,
credit scene with like
yeah.
Tennessee whiskey and everything is like very kind of paced around his procedure and everything. Yeah.
And I was just under the impression that they were trying to keep an ever-present understanding of the audience that this person's terminally ill and that this is a thing that they have to continue to do. But
Mhm.
it's entirely possible that there may have been something there. I didn't think about that at all. But it's cool that somebody got something out of it, other than
Yeah.
I hate this and where's the plot?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because I definitely, I enjoyed this movie much more than most people did, I think, and that's
yeah. I thought it was excellent. I have a feeling that this is just one of those movies where people kind of couldn't handle it. Like they thought it was just too fucking depressing, and they wanted something more sci-fi and a little less drama. But you know, for me, it's like I think that my differing taste in movies and also my differing taste in music make it a little easier for me to listen to certain things and to watch certain things because I can still enjoy different kinds of films. Like if I go see a movie starring The Rock and it turns out being some deep dramatic thing, then I'm like, you know what?
like Tooth Fairy.
I'm okay that this isn't an action film, dude. Oh god, I haven't seen that. I hate those movies. I hate like the atypical tough guy thing.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, let's take this buff guy and make him kind of soft. No one's ever done this before.
Would it be
like,
really funny if we put The Rock in a leotard with like little wings on?
Wouldn't it be funny if Vin Diesel was a babysitter?
Actually, yeah, that'd be pretty funny.
Just like okay, with the exception of Kindergarten Cop, that was pretty excellent. Actually, I thought that movie was brilliant.
What is your daddy? Who's your daddy, and what does he do?
That there's a lot of just gold Arnold like lines from that movie. But you know the thing with it is, you know, like when I saw Drive, I was expecting like a fast car movie. I was expecting Fast and the Furious
or Baby Driver. Did you ever see Baby Driver?
I love that movie.
Yeah.
I love John Hamm in that movie. John Hamm hated his haircut in that movie. But yeah, I mean, when you go from Mad Men to that, you're kind of used to having this like nice, well done 1960s hair. But I was expecting like you know, Fast and the Furious with a little tiny more sex appeal than Paul Walker, I guess. And then I was greeted with this very strange cult drama.
Yeah.
And I was fine with that.
And like a darker, gritty one too. Yeah, very different.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I think that maybe a lot of people were expecting some kind of sci-fi action thing.
Yeah.
That maybe they didn't get. But it's weird because didn't Interstellar get a lot of really good ratings?
Yeah, but Interstellar was also that's a Nolan film that was a major box. Like this, you know, this was a straight to Netflix movie that I think just the quantity of reviews is probably going to be a lot lower. Like I guarantee, you know, I shouldn't say that I guarantee, but I bet if this movie received the large number of reviews that it may end up balancing out, but I don't know.
You know, I kind of think one thing I say a lot about cooking is that while I also do this when I cook, any idiot can make something taste good with salt, fat, and sugar. Like that's easy. I feel like any idiot can make a movie good if they just put Matthew McConaughey in it. It's like not good. Like people will like it, you know, like it's a cheap way to make people like it. I like Matthew McConaughey's work. I think he's great.
To Nolan's credit though, the actual cheap way is putting a shirtless Matthew McConaughey in your movie. And I think, if I remember correctly, I don't think he took his shirt off in Interstellar.
Not a single time.
Yeah, I think the nips were covered the entire time in that one. And that is very strange for a McConaughey role. So hats off to Nolan. I'm not actually going to take my hat off because it's under my headset, but
you did something impossible, Nolan. You made Matthew McConaughey keep his shirt on for an entire film. But you know, I think that it kind of bothers me. Like I almost feel like it's kind of like unfair. Like I feel like maybe, and I don't want to sound like a pompous ass, but I'm about to. Maybe a lot of the folks that saw this just don't get movies.
They just don't get it, man.
You know,
I do kind of like. I kind of agree. I don't know if I would word it that like. I think that there are people that just don't have patience for a type of movie, and I think it's unfortunate. But I think that I like tinfoil hat time, but it's like, yeah, like, well, I think this goes into like almost is modern technology making us weaker that we talked about, you know, a year and a half ago. But I do think that the change in the way we consume media, the way we do everything, we are used to things being faster, things being, you know, on demand at a certain pace. And I think that, I mean, case in point, very many of us don't read that much anymore. It's kind of like a lot of people, it's, you know, like, how do you find the time to sit down and read? And a lot of people, you know, they would rather now I'm going to say this and it sounds like I don't like them, but I do. But like a lot of people would rather go see an Avengers movie than watch a slow drama that's going to make you think about family and love and things like that. So I understand that. I think it's unfortunate, but I do think that it's like when people come to consuming media, a lot of people look for a certain type of enjoyment. And I do think that this movie doesn't offer that. Now, I think that this movie offers a lot more and offers some great things, but I don't think that it really offers that. Like, if you go in wanting action, even though this movie has some action scenes, it's not going to give you what you're looking for.
Yeah. And you know, and I feel the same way. Like, you know, I like the Avengers films too. And it seems like everybody just wants some, like, you know, visual effects clusterfuck action fuck fest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like kind of wow. That was a little too effed up description of those movies. But and you know, and because for me, like, I'm someone that really, like, I love movies, and to some people they're just entertainment. And you know, I understand, like, I love sneakers, and to a lot of people they're just a foot covering that you put on so you don't hurt your feet, and they're comfortable, and that's that. I think of guns as a tool. I don't love guns. I don't think of them as being some beautiful thing that, like, I look at and think, I'm in love. I'm like, this is a tool. This is a hobby. You know, I go.
He's not talking about you. You're beautiful.
But you know, but I do understand why other people are super, super into them. So at the same time, while I'm someone who really, really enjoys movies, they're not just some cheap way to pass the time. Some of them are. There are a few movies that are really like that. If you've never seen Only the Strong, I definitely recommend it. It's one of those movies.
That's one of the things I think where I try to draw that difference between a movie and a film. I think that's almost like
it's like rap and hip hop.
Yeah, but it's like I think that there is, like, you know, a movie I can go to and just enjoy, and I think that it's like if I call something a film, there's almost like there's more to it. You know, like I wouldn't call like what's a good action? I wouldn't call Fast and the Furious a film. That's a popcorn movie. I'll enjoy. You know, they're fun, but it's like I don't go to see that for, you know, the deep the thoughts that it's going to make me have. Like that's two completely different entertainment experiences, in my opinion.
I mean, I as you saw in the episode we did on the Greasy Strangler, I can make anything seem like it's deep. So if you give me like 15 minutes and a Microsoft Word file, I can probably tap some stuff to make it sound like. Actually, that would be a fun thing to do. Just start doing like reviews on superficial movies and try to make them seem like they're deep.
That's actually a pretty
I understand.
Idea.
But to me, like I mainly because, like, with rap music, I get really irritated by that's not hip hop. Like it's like,
well, a lot of that just becomes gatekeeping, right? Like
what?
A lot of it just becomes like gatekeeping almost.
Yeah, like, and I recognize that what you're saying is there's a difference between the two types. That one's like a super kind of cerebral thing where someone's really showcasing their ability to do like some work, and it's written well, and the visual effects are done well, and the costumes and the casting and the lighting and the camera work, and it's all this great piece of art where it's not necessarily going to be entertaining, but it'll be good art. And sometimes they can be both.
Yeah.
So I see what you're
Definitely.
just kind of, you're not saying like, oh man, that's not a real film, bro. It's just a movie. You're saying this is a film, this is a movie, this is something fun, like what we just said, you know, the Avengers films, like they're
but I feel like, but see, like you even said, Avengers films, I feel like there is a Venn diagram. I feel like those kind of do fit both, where there is like, there is the cheap entertainment, the fun things to watch. But if a film, and this is where I would call it a film, if it leaves me with things to think about, things to talk about, like a lingering feeling, if it makes me feel something, that to me is more, if it gives me an emotional experience, that to me is more of a film. I'm not going to have an emotional experience watching Fast and Furious. Well, except for it's the one, where Paul's there, but not there. But,
Yeah.
But no, but you know what I'm saying though? Like those type of movies though, it seems to be, it's more about what I'm seeing than what I'm feeling and thinking.
Yeah, it's the difference between the movie that you want to watch on a Saturday afternoon after you've had a good breakfast and a couple cups of coffee, and then the one that you get off of work and you're fucking exhausted and you just want to sit down, eat some popcorn, and just turn off your brain for a little bit and watch Jason Statham kick people in the face.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
And but on the subject of the Avengers, since we've mentioned it a couple times, like I think there is some overlap in that one, because that one follows like the hero kind of archetype and like the hero's sacrifice kind of thing, and the epic kind of, I think it's a very like Greek epic kind of thing.
Well, and also like I'd hate to, it's kind of unfair to give it the character development, because it gets 23 fucking movies to do it, but like the character arcs are phenomenal. But yeah, it's because it's over the course of 50 hours of screen time.
But that is, at this point, I think, in the history of motion pictures, I think that is one, maybe the only series of films that is a true cultural phenomenon. That's what it was. Because like, did you see the new Avengers was like, did you vote in this election?
Yeah.
Like, it was just something that you expect everybody to do. And like, that was the thing to talk about. Like, I remember, like, did you see Endgame was a point of conversation for a month.
Yeah.
Everybody I saw. And if you hadn't seen it, it was like, bro, you have to, because we cannot shut up about it. We need you to see it so we don't spoil it. Do you
remember that after Infinity War, the Thanos demands your silence things that went around online? It was like, because people saw it early, and it was like, if you've seen the movie, it's like Thanos demands your silence. And I loved that people weren't assholes and spoiled that, because that would be way too easy to spoil Infinity War for so many people.
Yeah, Bruce Willis was dead the whole time. That's always what I say every time I talk about spoilers with people. But I do think that this movie for me is more of like what you were talking about, like fits more of the kind of film classification. But I think there's more to it than a lot of people gave it credit for, and I think it's a little more complex. I think a lot of people probably were willing to take in. I think that a lot of this was maybe a mistake of expectations for a lot of folks. And if this isn't like the kind of thing that you are like, there's a guy that I work with that listens to metal music, but there's a couple, and I listen to metal too, and there's a couple bands that are metal, but they have some crossover aspects. And I know for a fact that he would probably just be like, what the hell is this crap?
Oh, it's not metal enough for him? Or
do what?
Is it like not metal enough for him, I guess? Or
yeah, or like he's also more in like the old school metal stuff, like Megadeth, Slayer, stuff like that. I don't even think he listens to like death metal at all. But it's like, but he's not someone that I would recommend certain bands to, because I just know that he wouldn't be into it like that. And there's plenty of people that I wouldn't recommend this film to at all, because I think that they would expect something and they wouldn't have sort of enough of an appreciation or a fondness of different types of films to really enjoy it.
Exactly. And that's why I struggle with my recommendation too, because it's like, I do feel like, like I said early, it's like most people that I speak to on a like normal conversational basis, I think would like this movie. But any random person clicking on the YouTube link for this, it's like there is a good chance that the average person would not like this movie. So it is kind of tough to give it a recommendation. But I would say it's like similar to what I said with the movie previous, where it's like I do think that it sounds so cheesy, but it's like, it's almost like the world would be a better place if more people liked this type of movie. If more people could like take the time to appreciate this type of art, I feel like that would be a good thing.
Yep, that sounded exactly how you thought it was going
Yep,
to.
yeah.
But no, I get what you're saying though. I think that the film is hard to handle, and you know, I think that there's some people that their ego or maybe even their intuition wouldn't be able to handle the film or the plot line. But this is a movie where even though I don't think everybody's gonna love it, I do have a desire for other people to go and make their mind up themselves.
Yeah.
This is a movie that I think you can at least, if you don't like it, you can at least get a handle a little better on what your taste in movies is like.
Yep. I do think one of the notes that I had, like last notes I have here going through the sequentially, I do think the revelation at the end was to me really touching, really masterfully done. I loved where the movie ended, and I loved what the film said to me, what it made me think about, and how it made me feel. It is, though, it's a long journey to get there. And I do think that's exactly where I think most people would kind of have the problem with it. Is it in my opinion, it's worth the time, but if people don't have the patience to get there, it's unfortunate, but I can understand. One of the themes that jumped out to me, the big, like, I mean, of course it's kind of like the theme of the entire movie, but the whole like being haunted by our past, and literally to the fact where like Iris was almost like a ghost he was seeing around, that it's like literally like actually haunting him. I do think it's very similar to the famous quote where it's like at the end of your life you're gonna regret the things you didn't do.
Yeah.
And it's like he kind of like he regrets that there, well, I don't know if I want to call it regrets, but he realizes that there was a big chunk of his life that he did not at all take part in. And at the end, it's like, I think it does kind of like, you know, back in the question of was it worth it? And did he make the right choice? Because he dedicated his life to his work of finding this planet that, I mean, the moon that literally could have been the savior of all of humanity, but in the end didn't. So it was actually like, and that's all, you know, hindsight is 2020, but in reality, completely dedicating himself to his life's work actually did nothing in the long run. And like, as far as, you know, like for the quote unquote greater good or anything, and he really did like miss out on that entire life he could have spent getting to know Iris instead of just having the 5-minute conversation that he actually had at the end.
Yeah, that it's kind of like that movie with Nicolas Cage in it, where he's like a super rich guy and then he like gets hit by a car or something, I think, and then he wakes up in some alternate reality where he decided to marry his like high school sweetheart or something. I cannot remember the name of the film, but he
that
basically
sounds
like
familiar. Yeah,
like I think Tay Leone is in it. I think she plays the wife. I can't remember the name of it, but a lot of that I think is similar to that whole idea that, you know, you pour your life into this other thing.
The Family Man.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yep.
And then you realize later that you kind of like maybe that wasn't really the thing for you necessarily. The thing. Oh my God, I had something I was going to say about this movie that I thought might have been a big deal, but now I just completely forgot what it was. This is what happens when you don't take notes. I don't even know what I was thinking. Whatever. Right. It's all good. Probably wasn't that important.
Exactly. I was going to use the old 5th grade teacher thing of, hey, if you can't remember, it's not that important. I think that covers pretty much all of my notes. Actually, I did have one more note. So I want to see that kid in more movies after this. I think she was phenomenal in this, and she was like the cutest child actor ever. So yeah, I'm excited to see her in some more stuff after this.
Yeah, she did some good work in that one, and I hope that her life doesn't turn out as a disaster like so many other people that get into acting when they're children.
Exactly. Yeah, Big Dog, yes, you are correct. They did find the moon because of Augustine's research. She is the one that... So that's what we talked about earlier. I guess that's why it kind of made sense that it had to be an undiscovered moon, is that had to be part of the plot line, that it was a moon that this made-up scientist discovered. So it does make sense, yeah. Are you ready to do favorite line?
Oh yeah, I'm ready for favorite line.
I love my pick for this week because it to me means two different things, and I love that I was able to do that. I felt super clever picking this one because like in the movie, the line means one thing to the actor that it's being said to, but this is also just a piece of advice that I think is can be applicable in other situations, and I want, myself included, I want people to just keep this in mind. If you want her to know about you, you can introduce yourself. I thought that was a good line, right? Wasn't that a good one?
Yeah, that line's heavy too. Like that line's just like a slap in the face. Like, because like when she says that, I was like, dude,
yeah,
like shots fired, bro.
Yeah.
Do you need me to bandage that up for you, big guy? So my favorite line, it's kind of a pivotal point in the movie for a character that I think we agree has a huge contribution to the film, even though they lack a lot of screen time. And it sort of tells you a little bit about Augustine that you may or may not realize yet. I called to tell you I'm not pregnant. You're safe. It was just a possible sighting of a life form that ultimately proved false. You want to be an explorer, Augustine? To discover new worlds, to give life some hope? But while you're doing all that, your own life is just slipping away, and that breaks my heart. But you know, I'm sure it's for the best.
That is a good one. That's a heavy one too. Yeah.
I think it's cool that we both picked lines from Gene, though.
Yeah, and kind of both for very similar reasons, kind of talking about a very similar point. Yeah, I mean, that is like the main point that jumps out from this movie is like, no matter what, there are going to be points of life that will pass you by. It's always like there will be a point later in your life where you will have regrets. Do what you can today to minimize that in the future. Just realize that it's going to come, but you can start doing damage control today of like looking at moments, looking at situations and saying like, am I going to regret doing this or not doing this in the future? What do you have any choices for me for next week's movie?
Oh yeah. Your choices are I'm actually recycling these from a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
A movie with a good actor that everyone loves to make fun of. A movie that everyone thinks is... a bad movie that everyone thinks is great. Or a movie that I know very little about, but that I know for a fact will make me cry. You know what?
I want to see you cry,
There's
boy.
always a hint that it's like obvious you're just gonna go grab every fucking time. And when I read these, I'm like, why did I even put this on here?
You can't just throw that on there and be like, hey, one of them is gonna make me cry, by the way. Yeah, no, we're gonna make you cry. What are you gonna cry to?
As surprised as you may be, I don't know how much you know about this movie either. My Neighbor Totoro.
Oh, okay.
Which is another anime.
It is.
But it's a Miyazaki
yes.
anime, so that puts it in a different fucking league.
Yes, this is one. So I know I've seen Spirited Away. I know I've seen Howl's Moving Castle, and I thought there was a third one that I know. I don't think I've seen this one,
I saw Spirited Away on a first date, actually.
That's an interesting first date movie. That is a tough first date movie. That's a very heady, like.
That shit ended very strangely. That whole thing.
Dude, that's like for this movie, would you watch The Midnight Sky on a first date? This is not at all a first date movie, right?
No. Yeah, I mean, man, like if I was still dating, that would actually be a fun thing to do. Like take somebody to like just some fucking gut-wrenching drama for a first date. That would be fucking... Well, also, like, movies are not a good first date anyway. But
yeah,
this is someone that I actually already met and had a conversation with elsewhere.
Okay.
And then I was like, hey, let's exchange numbers. Hey, what
Tinder. No.
Do what?
I just said cough, cough, Tinder. When you said I met them elsewhere. Like, yeah, we met them on Tinder.
I've only been on a few Tinder dates, honestly.
Gotcha. Well, guys, this is going to bring us to the end of another episode of the Metacast Movie Show. If you are watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed this discussion, please hit the like button, subscribe to keep up to date with what we're doing, and comment below and tell us how you felt about The Midnight Sky.
You thought we're the best goddamn podcast you've ever seen and you want to keep up to date or even join us on a future episode, please join our Discord. The link is in the description below. We will be live next week on Wednesday, same bat time, same bat channel, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/TilaTV.